on the last episode of Blue Grit Podcast.
Can't happen in Texas because it's two different cultures. It's two different, right? Like, hell, even what we do in Austin, in Central Texas is different than what they do in Houston and Dallas, right? You can't have cookie cutter approaches to a lot of things. So I always knew that was going to be a bad idea. So even when I was approached with starting a BLM chapter in Austin, I was like, no, we'll do something else that makes sense to keep it on a local level, right?
Kudos to you when you got a flashlight in your face and a gun in your back for not turning around, motherfucking shoving, escalating the situation, potentially getting yourself shot.
You got a whole new perspective on things. His perspective also changed, and that's why ride-alongs are important. It's not just for the citizens to see why cops do what cops do, the way cops do it.
Yeah.
It's for the cops to get to know their citizens better.
But and this may be throwing y'all a bone, but I don't need a ride-along for that because, even when I say I have issues with police, I mean the institution, right? I'm not talking about the actual individual. The person in a uniform, like I have to, and this is where I lose a lot of my base, right? Because I am crazy enough to understand that it's a fucking human person in a uniform.
Right. We hire from the human race right now.
Right. So like now the uniform and the institution of policing, that is my bone. But you know, like for the people at the rallies and the protests that are like, you know, in the cops' face,
Riots.
right? It's just,
We're going to call them riots.
Yeah.
sure you are. You know, but you know, like for the people at the peaceful protests and in the cops' face, spitting and screaming and yelling,
That's horseshit.
yeah, but and it's just like you know what, to my friends and comrades in the movement, just like how much do you actually expect a human to like endure that before they snap?
Right.
We
It's
all
counterproductive.
Yeah, like we all have our limits. You know what I mean? And like, do I think the people that and I say this, I've said this over the years. Do I think the people that have the power of God in a moment, like 'cause people with a badge and a gun have the right to take life or let it live in any moment? Like,
Well, no, that's not.
you know, but like, do I think that these people should be trained to deal with that as much as they can? Absolutely. Like, does your fuse have to be a lot longer than mine?
Yes.
Absolutely. But still, there is a fucking point. You know what I mean? Like,
I actually had a grand juror one time in a grand jury asked me while I was on the stand, officer, why didn't y'all just go ahead and kill that son of a bitch?
you know, and again, and I'm saying like with the words, you know, yeah, but like there are some people that like finger throwing shit at like that to me is not acceptable.
In
But it's two different perspectives.
Yep.
Okay. And we each have to be willing to look at the situation from the other perspective. And we have preached this forever and ever and ever. It's not just about the citizens getting to know what the cops do. It's about the cops taking the time to get to know their own citizens, their own communities better than we do. We tend to build up walls and only associate with other cops because they're the only ones who really understand what we are going through. And we've got to stop doing that. But our departments have to find a way to help those officers do that, have to find a way to encourage and even sometimes mandate that happens. But the citizens have to cooperate too. The citizens have to be willing to also enter into those exchanges with our law enforcement and get to know each other in non-enforcement capacities.
Yeah.
And then we will start reaching some of those conclusions that you talked about before we even walked in here.
Yeah.
We agree on a lot more than we disagree on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and again, because I'm trying not to always say, but yes, and I think we also have to realize that for some people, and this is the hard part, some people have been so traumatized by policing or by systems in general that they're just not showing up, and it's just like, you know, just there's nothing you can say, y'all can say, I can say. Some people are just like so. Like, you know, like fuck the police that they're just not showing up, you know?
One thing to your point, you talked about, you know, walking up and spitting in a cop's face and cussing them out. There's not ever going to be a good result to that. And no party in that is expecting a good outcome to actually occur.
But it's
from
not a
that.
good result to that. You shouldn't do that to anybody.
Yeah. No, but I'm leading up to something.
Yeah.
If I think I'm wanting to change you,
Mm-hmm.
if I walk up and spit in your face and swing at you, do I actually think that I'm going to have any change? And you're certainly not going to desire it.
I'm not going to change you for the better.
Yeah,
No.
neither one of us are going to change for the better. And we see these peaceful protests turn into riots somewhat consistently, and it's almost like the definition of insanity. We keep doing the same thing over, expecting a different outcome. And has there been bad instances of bad policing? Yes, there has. Has some of them been where it's misunderstood or there was a false narrative that was hijacked and taken over by people with other agendas? Yeah, there's been that. But there's got to be a way for sensible people to be able to sit down, because if you walk up and spit at somebody and talk about their mom and swing at them, it's not ever going to work towards resolving and mending and networking a relationship. It's just not ever going to do it. I'm going to go burn a neighborhood down and that'll teach everybody. That's not teaching anybody anything.
I mean, yeah, I agree with you.
Just like if we have members who get mad and quit Tmpa, drop their membership because we had you on here, that's counterproductive. That's not helping. And it's like I say, it's got to be a two-way street. And by the way, I have had these conversations with chiefs and sheriffs all the time. Every department out there, it just seems like, has a citizens police academy, right? We want the citizens to come down and sit through a citizens police academy to learn what we do. Where do we have those? We have them at the police station. We have them at the sheriff's office. Well, a lot of the folks that we really need to come sit through those classes, they don't want to come anywhere near a police station or a sheriff's office. Let's have them out in the communities. Let's have them out there where maybe we can get some other folks to show up. You know,
what's Chaz's thoughts on, because a protest, all it ends up is I'm going to go stick my foot in a fire ant pile, and then I'm surprised that this went sideways and I'm getting bit by ants everywhere. What's Chaz's thoughts?
Well, sometimes, like, we've never thrown one of those type of protest rallies.
And I'm not saying you have.
Yeah.
But to people on both sides out there listening, what's a better way than showing up and freezing water bottles and chunking them at the police and turning things sideways? What does Chaz think? Shooting from the
what's
hip.
the fix?
I mean, if I had the fix, I wouldn't be here because I'd be rich. But
let's do that. I want to be rich too.
I mean, I really think, and nobody likes this fucking answer, but I believe it to be true, right? I think the fix is, man, we really just got to start talking to one another, right? I mean, like we have grown so far apart as humans that
When you say we, you mean law enforcement?
no,
the
everybody,
community?
like everybody, everybody. But then, especially when you
Politics,
start, when you start putting labels on it, it gets even worse. All right, like from a man to woman perspective, we're split. From a black white race perspective, we're split. From a citizen or pedestrian to law enforcement, we're split. Right, so like
Republican, Democrat.
yeah, like we've gotten so polarized on almost everything that, like, we only spend time talking to people that somewhat agree with us. Yeah. Right. Even
And
we
we demonize anybody who disagrees.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I put out a statement around what's going on in the Middle East, to where I was like, I guess it wasn't pro-Palestine enough, and these people that have been in my corner for years was like, "Oh, you bootlicker," and just like, wait a minute, y'all know my morals and you know where I stand, and I was just trying to say, like, yes, Palestinians have a right to exist, and Jews have a right to be safe, right? Like, that's all I said. And it was like, how could you? I'm just like, have we been so polarized to where we can't even dream of like a common ground, a common middle,
And the
right?
answer is yes, we have.
But it's just like, there are people on left, right, red, blue that and a lot of these people not even profiting from it, right? Just sheer like stupidity to me. Like, you're so stuck on your belief that you cannot imagine that there is a way or path forward to meet in the middle, right?
But I'm going to be old-fashioned for a minute.
Yep.
You just nailed it. People need to talk. Part of the problem is you make a post on social media. I don't like it. So I can get on and comment, well, mother truck you, Chaz. Well, then you can get on.
Oh, that's the worst
you're
part.
A punk. And
That's the worst part.
we may actually get along.
Yeah.
But we get on social media and decide we're going to keyboard warrior, and now we hate each other's guts. We've never even laid eyes on each other.
Yeah. Man, there are people that hate me on Twitter. And these people haven't met, like, and I know they hear sound bites, they hear some things of what I've said, and they've heard some things that I've said a long time ago that have changed. But, they just stick with it. I don't block them because I don't believe in that. And it's just like, it's all kind of entertaining to me. But
I think this is a good opportunity for us to segue into something. In 2019, you began kind of dissecting the problems that you saw with Austin Police contract. And that segued into 2020 with what we call the defund movement. Significant, catastrophic, in my opinion, of Austin Police Department, and the morale there is still hurting from that episode. I kind of want to know what was going through your mind process during that whole episode. But two, because in my opinion, and we have stats and data to prove it, because of the defund movement that happened in 2020, this community, this city, the one that we all typically, every Texan loves Austin, is still feeling the repercussions from that decision then. The crime rate's astronomical. We can't retain and recruit police officers now. Can you speak on if your thoughts have changed, how they have changed, and how we can have discussion to try to put that money back, or it's been put back, quote unquote, but talk about that. Talk about what your mind process or what your thinking process was.
So I think this is a part where, I think we're just not going to agree. And I will also admit this. I did not like the term defund. I think it was too much, and I think it missed the mark of what we were trying to do. But that was a national campaign that I was one of the only voices that said we shouldn't have said this. Now, do I think police departments in most major cities have too much money? Absolutely. I think you all have too much money, and I also say this: I think police departments are asked to do too much work, right? Like, and again, like in 2023, we are asking officers to be fucking therapists, mediators, mental health. You all shouldn't do all that. You can't. You literally can't. So in 2020, we were proposing that let's take some of this money and try different approaches to public safety. Like, let's have a different mental health outreach. Let's have different sectors do different things. And honestly, I think we got caught up. And when I say we, not me personally, but I think we, the criminal justice reform folks, got caught up in the politics on the national level. And then like it was a narrative that just got out of everybody's hands that we can control, right? Because what we did in Austin was really a cool. It could have been a cool thing, but Governor Abbott came in and shut it down. But what happened is that national media came in and said, "Oh, Austin defunded their police," when that was not our intention. We just wanted to take some money. We wanted to reallocate some money and try different things. And I mean, honestly, man, I just think we got caught up in the national narrative that this really got away from us, and we couldn't. It was too late to change it or walk it back, because
now see, here's I think a good example of where we find some common ground, because even before that, we had been down at the legislature testifying that there needed to be a shifting of resources from law enforcement to other programs when it comes to mental health.
Yeah.
And you can go back and look at the records. I don't know if you ever attended any of those committee hearings, but we argued and testified over and over again. If you will put more money into mental health services, you can stop spending a lot of money over here on law enforcement. You can stop training every cop on this. You can stop spending so much money on your county jails. The number one provider of mental health services in every county in the state of Texas is, in fact, the county jail.
Yes.
And that shouldn't be the way it is. The difference is you can't just cut it over here all of a sudden and then shift the money over here and expect that's going to solve the problem over here. You're going to have to do these services first and then gradually shift that money over. Somehow or another, that got hijacked.
So the mission you started.
I agree. But to be fair, we had that idea, and then the people that make shit happen, they didn't do it right.
Well, there's a montage of the city council meeting of all the different speakers, and that was going to be my question: was the result what you set out to start, or did the nuts hijack it? Because there's a bunch of nuts. Did it get hijacked by the nuts and bolts, and it didn't? The result wasn't exactly what y'all started.
No, I think again, I think the national narrative is really what screwed up what we were trying to do here in Austin locally. I mean, there are nuts on every side. We both know that, and I think that despite the crazies on both sides, that I think we had a valid argument. I really do. I just think that again, if the word defunded didn't exist around defunding police, because again, man, so many people on my side are going to be so, like, what they think is disappointed when they hear all this shit. But I have to understand that there are old black people in my neighborhood that agree with me on police need to be better. They absolutely don't agree with me that the police should be defunded. So how can I walk in my own truth, advocate for what I believe in, but also respect the people in the communities that I serve?
Because it doesn't come down to police. It comes down to the criminal justice reform with how the criminal justice is enforced.
Yeah.
The police officers have the enforcement. They have the laws to enforce. But it's not really criminal justice reform.
But on the flip side of that, we need to acknowledge there have been some improvements made within the Austin Police Department as a result of some of this, especially in their training, in what they're trying to train.
Yeah.
The problem is they don't have anybody to train. They can't get enough people.
And this is where I disagree. I don't think that people are not signing up to be police officers because of anything that me and my groups have done. I just think there's a huge national, I think there's a global shift around the role of policing today and how policing is done that are making people question it.
How about this? I'll acknowledge that you're right. This problem is nationwide, so it can't possibly be because just of what you've done in Austin. Maybe some of what y'all did contributed to it somewhat, but it's not the primary. It's far from being the primary cause. I agree with you on that.
I don't know why people don't want to be police anymore.
I can't imagine.
I'm being serious.
I'm not sure why anybody wanted to be a cop before.
Let me ask you this, and this is I really want to get your perspective on this. You've never ridden out with a cop and been a cop, rode out in a police car, so you really don't have this perspective. But one thing, as me being a cop, and I watch all the quote unquote controversial shootings, the controversial police shootings in America. The notable one is Ramos here in Austin. Okay. Yep. The number one thing that always comes back to me as a citizen from Dallas, I grew up, born and raised in Dallas. I moved to East Texas. I was a cop for 20-something years. I now work for the state's largest and best police association. And the number one thing that I see when I see those controversial shootings is compliance. Clint made a great point earlier. You didn't have exactly a great situation with this officer that stuck the gun in your back, but you didn't show your ass and try to fight with him right then and there. There's a process on how everything should be done. Can you comment on that, on compliance? If it were followed, a lot of these controversial shootings may not occur, and then we may not have the protests and the rallies. And say, where's the accountability? We preach and bitch about accountability with police, but where's the accountability with the people that are fighting the cops for this situation to occur?
Yeah, man. So I'll say this. I think I do think there is some. I don't know if the word I want to use is like responsibility, because it sounds icky with what I'm about to say. But I do think
culpability.
No, I do think there's some responsibility for the citizen to like be able, as much as we can, to keep a level head in those type of situations.
Right.
Because and this has just been taught to me by like my grandma and that generation, like, stay alive and we can fight it in court or something along those lines, right?
Yep.
But also, and maybe this is unfair, right? Maybe it's just fucking unfair. But I do think that there is a level of honor and prestige, and maybe some assumption that people in uniform have to be better than, right? Like I think people assume that you all just have to be better, right? I think
better like held to a higher standard, or that we're a better person than you are.
No, like held to a higher standard. Like
we agree.
Yeah, but same thing with teachers, right? Like a lot of us, or a lot of people with kids, send their kids to school trusting that this person is not a pervert, that they have their child's best interests at their heart. And I think that a lot of us in the public, even people that hate the police, right? If they could,
You're not one of them. Let's say that.
no, I'm not. I'm not. You know, but
Chaz loves cops. I want to
wait, hold on. Wait, calm down.
Okay,
But you know,
sorry.
I do
got
think
excited.
I
Sorry.
think even the people that would say they hate the police would admit that they just expect you all to like go above and beyond a little bit. So in instances where, like, let's say the kid wasn't me and didn't take a moment to breathe, right? And the kid may have like ran or not saying he would have hit the cop, but like in instances where emotions are high, you know, like the fucking testosterone is flowing, whatever juices are flowing.
Whoa.
I think people
That escalated.
Yeah.
I think people are just assuming you all have to be better.
Agreed.
Now, is that fair? I don't fucking know, but
It is fair. It is fair. Cops, teachers, clergy
yes,
we have to be held to a higher standard, but it has to be a reasonable standard.
Yeah, absolutely.
The moment that standard becomes unreasonable is when the job becomes untenable, and that's when people stop wanting to get into the business altogether. We don't disagree that cops have to be held to a higher standard. We will, again, it's a threshold argument. Where is the reasonableness standard in there?
yeah, you know, because man,
And
I
we
like
just have to have conversations about what that means.
because I am by all means, I hate the Dallas Cowboys. Absolutely, I hate the Dallas Cowboys. I
back, boss. Stay back.
But I also understand that if you go play for that organization, there is literally a plethora of people that are going to hold you to a higher expectation than that of a person that's going to play for like the Lions or the Browns, right? Like when you put that star on, right, you just can't, you're not the same person. People that play for the Lakers or when you play for like Boston, there's a different standard. Like, is that fair? No, but it just is what it is.
So again, I love the Dallas Cowboys. I've been a Dallas Cowboys fan since Don Meredith was quarterbacking. I hate Jerry Jones. So again, it's just a matter of perspective here.
Yep.
You know, there are other teams that I hate, and I love some of their players. You know, I'm a huge fan, you know, of players on other teams, even though I can't stand the team. I get it. Same kind of situation though. We've just got to find a way to talk about exactly where those thresholds are.
Yeah.
Without fighting with each other.
Yeah.
Without demonizing one another.
Yeah, but you know, I'm just saying to this point, like I do think there's some there is some responsibility from the citizen to like try to calm down, be patient, but also like, man, you guys just got to be better. Like you just have to. It fucking sucks, you know. But
and in that situation where he chose to not comply,
yeah.
And he chose to get in the vehicle and leave, and then it created a deadly force situation. You know, it goes back to
We're back to the Ramos case.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because we had 12 jurors set through. I don't remember how long the trial went on. Still wound up with a split decision. Still wound up 8-4 about exactly what is reasonable in that circumstance. Right. You know, it's those of us that don't know all the facts, that weren't sitting in that jury box, I don't know how we can pass judgment on it at all, one way or the other, to be honest with you.
Well, in the reasonable expectation that you guys have of law enforcement, we have it of the citizens too. If I walk up to you and you're pissed off that I stopped you for speeding, I get it. You're not going to be happy about it. And I don't want you to smile and thank me for it. But you don't have to, you know, mother truck me and talk about my kids and my wife. And I'm not saying that's an excuse and that it deserves you to get pulled out the vent window or whatever. But there's a reasonableness between humans to act appropriate.
He doesn't know what a vent window is.
Out the window of the car.
Oh,
He's talking about the old wing vents that used to have on the cars, the little bitty ones.
But
what is that?
I'm not saying
what's that?
the old cars they had, I guess, when you smoke
But
cigarettes.
you know, a
you
great
could
example of
press
that is the First Amendment auditors you were talking about earlier. They are the world's worst about mistreating our law enforcement officers.
Yep.
The far other spectrum of the political world from Chaz.
Yeah, they show up at a police station trying to run up in the cop's face with their cell phone cameras on and trying to provoke and to see if they can make something go sideways, just so they can become a YouTube legend. And it occasionally someone bites, but I'm like, man, do you not have a life just to spend your entire life running around trying to poke the bear and just praying that I can become YouTube famous because I can act like not a good person and hopefully get somebody to go crazy on me?
I was going to ask you this as we kind of near the end of this. 2020, there was the riots in downtown Austin. Our illustrious, honorable district attorney, Jose Garza, we will definitely agree to disagree on his policies and procedures.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, he chose to indict 21 Austin police officers. Recently, 17 of those officers the indictments were released. I'm going to paint a picture of how I think that day went for the officers. We just had on Austin Police President Michael Bullock, phenomenal guy, phenomenal background, and he talked about during the riots, they were on what they called, I think, an Alpha Bravo. What that looked like for the Austin police officers was that they would work 12-hour shifts, be off 12, and they would have to report back to downtown or where the riots are occurring at for over 30 days.
All hands on deck.
All hands on deck. The 21 officers that were indicted by, and negligently, I will say that, by Garza, I don't think they were given ammunition that was later to be found not defective, right? But there were riots. I mean, these were legitimate riots that the Austin police officers took an oath to protect the city on. Do you think that maybe that could have been handled a little bit differently on Garza's standpoint? Do you honestly think that 21 law enforcement officers of the Austin Police Department set forth that day to say, I am fixing to go assault some rioters in this crowd? Or do you think that people still remain committed to their political ideology and agendas more than what their oath is of office?
Do I think those officers made a conscious decision to go fuck some people up that day? Like was that on their agenda? Did they pull out their iPhone, open up notes, and say, this is on my task list? No. I think some officers responded terribly, and I think that people just wanted them to be held accountable for that, right? Like, even if I get out of here and I go rear-end somebody, right? Even though it wasn't my intention, I need to be held accountable, right? Like, some of those officers made some really bad decisions, and I just think that's.
But did they make bad decisions, or were they given bad resources?
I think they were. I think they were. I think they were given bad orders. I think they were given bad resources with the ammunition, and also I think after the fact, as Garza is trying to build a case, I think some folks in APD kind of mishandled the evidence, right? Like, and I think it really would have been hard for him to really win those cases anyway. I think it would have been a waste of people's time knowing that he didn't have all the evidence he needed. But again, and I'll just say this about police, and I know this is a loaded word, and I'm not trying to exaggerate what happened in 20, but I think in terms of police brutality, it's never about intent. Like, I honestly think that there are maybe a handful of officers that we've seen in police shootings that actually have really bad, evil intentions. But for the most part, I think people just make bad mistakes. Like, even with me, when you go back to the high school thing, I could justify in my mind, maybe in a very fucked up way, that this lesson that I needed to learn was key, because although I didn't do the crime knowingly, I was with these people that did something fucked up. They were in my car,
okay,
right? Like, I can kind of own that. Do I agree with the punishment? Absolutely not. I think it was harsh, but and I think a lot of times people in the community are just asking. Even with the Mike Ramos thing, I don't think that officer had this ill intention to kill Mike Ramos. I don't think that was his intention. I think he made a very bad call, and I think there are people in the community that wanted him to be held accountable for that.
And so what I'm telling you is that us three being cops and making split-second decisions on life and death, it's so hard to make to Monday morning quarterback that situation. You don't know what senses that officer was seeing, smelling, feeling. the events that led up to that, and so I guess I have an issue with people that don't have any law enforcement experience. Going back to the accountability on Ramos,
Yep.
I am terribly sorry he lost his life.
Yep.
But he lost his life because Ramos made a terrible decision that day, in my opinion. That's my professional opinion. I wasn't there to let you know what the Austin police officer felt, saw.
I mean, but could you imagine Ramos's perspective, right? You know, I mean, like here I am. We know, or at least we know now that there was no gun,
Right.
And I got like 8 guns pointed at me. I'm freaking out too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like again, and out of the how many officers were there? Like 8 or 9.
Well, it all goes back to the 911 call.
Yeah,
where the female lied and
absolutely
building up to this.
Absolutely. Yeah. But also out of the, let's say it was 8 other officers there, none of them.
But it goes back to
let me to answer your question. Yes, we can. As a matter of fact, I'm not surprised that 4 people voted guilty on that jury. Mm-hmm. None of us would have been surprised if it had been 12. Right. We don't know all the evidence those jurors have. We understand why Derek Chauvin is sitting in jail. We understand why Amber Geiger is sitting in jail. We understand why Officer Van Dyke, or whatever it was in Chicago in the Laquan McDonald case, is sitting in jail. Cops are, in fact, held accountable. Sometimes the accountability, I think, doesn't rise to the level of what some folks in our community think it should be, and that leads to some of these riots.
Yeah.
And that's not the right way to fix whatever ills you think the system.
Yeah, I mean, but also I think, like you said earlier, a lot of those people that are at the riots are just out there for their own fucking reason. They're not out there because they actually give a shit about anything.
And our argument would be there's no such thing as an innocent bystander at a riot. If a riot breaks out, you leave. If you don't leave, you're now a participant.
I mean,
it's kind of like riding in a car.
I could argue some of I could argue some of that, but I won't.
Okay.
Well, and to your point on your case, you felt like you were over prosecuted. I think when Garza chooses to weaponize his position to play to his constituents, he weaponizes the law. So he files a bunch of indictments, gets a bunch of indictments, knowing he's never going to successfully get a conviction on. That's over prosecution.
He ran on those promises.
Oh, absolutely.
By the way.
He made a job
that
posting
happened before he was DA, and you're still welcome, Mr. Garza, to come on here anytime you want and have this conversation.
He made a job posting that he was seeking to hire prosecutors that are motivated to indict the police and prosecute the police. But just in your case, you feel like you were riding in a car, you weren't as complicit or as much of an accomplice as the ones that actually did it. You felt like you were over-prosecuted. If you were over-prosecuted, that's not right. I don't know if you were or not. But getting an indictment on 21 guys just so you can, hold a press conference and grandstand on it, knowing you are never going to get a conviction on those, that's over-prosecution. It's official oppression is what it is.
100%.
But it's not right in any case. It's not right if it's a citizen, if it's done to a citizen. And it's not right if it's done to law enforcement.
Let's let Chaz off the hook. Chaz believes the officer overreacted.
I think some of the officers overreacted. I think
some. How many?
Well, I mean, I think 21 out of the hundreds that were out there is probably like lowballing it. Honestly,
that overreacted.
No, I think that overreacted. That's probably the right number. I think that's probably the right number.
So let me ask you this: had they not responded, and we're going to get off this topic after I ask this question.
If they had not responded,
or acted, what do you feel like the lines, or at least the consequences, would have been to the citizens of Austin, to the property, to life? It was getting out of hand. They had to use a force, and that dealt with the 20. But I'm saying, I guess if they would not have acted, how bad would the downtown area would have been had they not done anything? And they would have sat there and just watched this,
just let it burn,
or hand out suckers. And I mean, what would you have recommended that they do?
Man, I have such a good answer for y'all, but I won't say it while we're recording. Okay. I just like,
I get it.
Yeah. I think sometimes. I think sometimes it is mutually beneficial to all parties just to let things happen.
Let it burn.
Let's just see what happens.
But look what happened in Portland. Look what happened in Seattle. Is that really what you think would be best for Austin?
Was it Baltimore where the city manager said, the mayor said,
that was Baltimore.
let's set aside and allow them to have their own place, and they burned it to the ground, and then she said, oh crap, that was not
Atlanta too.
I mean, I just,
Because then what do you say to the individual that has the building that has invested their entire life into that business, whether it be a person in minority or not? And what do you say to as their building's burning right there, and the cops are just sitting there going, "We handed out suckers. We can't shoot them with the beanbag rounds." I mean, what would be your response to that?
Let's make sure we're being fair to Chaz.
Let's
make sure, because let's face it, this is a conversation that goes a whole lot deeper than the four of us.
100%.
And I think it does. We have a certain percentage of our population that thinks our rules should change. Mm-hmm. The cops are still enforcing the rules the way they are. And I think somehow or another we've got to reconcile those two things. Either change the rules or change the minds of the people that think we need to change the rules.
Yeah.
But somehow or another, we can't ask our cops to enforce rules that a significant portion of our population, maybe a majority of our population, that some of our own elected officials don't think they should be enforcing at all.
Yeah.
We better reconcile those two things or we're not going to fix this.
But I'm going to try to answer this question from like a philosophical standpoint, because I think I don't think it's just a simple answer. But I think if we just let it burn, right? I think I can understand you all's perspective, because if you let it burn, you have a lot of people saying y'all didn't do shit, all right?
Right.
But then if you respond the way that people responded, you still upset a lot of people, right? From the citizens' perspective, we burn up some shit. I honestly think that there are a lot of people from the community that look at other community members that went out there and did that and ask them like, well, what the fuck was that? Sometimes I think we do ourselves a slight disservice by not letting I don't want to say chaos, but that's the word I'm gonna say, like
letting nature take its
course. I think I can't think of the place that happened, but you've all heard this story. It was like this war. The two parties like take a moment to like play cards and drink on Christmas, right?
Yeah,
like some shit
War
like that. Yeah. I think sometimes when we just let things happen, we can be surprised by the result. Like, it's gonna be icky in that moment. Yes, some buildings would have been fucked up, but they got insurance. Things are, like those things are replaceable, right? And like, I don't know. I just think like we just need to let shit happen. Just let it happen. We'll see.
And let folks live with the consequences.
Is your grandma that raised you still alive?
Yeah, she's still alive.
Would she agree with you?
If your grandma owned a hair salon or a dry cleaners and it got burned to the ground, she's owned it 40 years. Would she be cool with that?
Honestly, I don't know. My grandma's house was broken into a couple months ago. Like 10 a.m. in the morning, some fucking tweaker was in the house. They saw each other. He screamed, she screamed, and he left.
She's good. She didn't get hurt.
No, she didn't get hurt. He
Good.
was just a
That's good.
little tweaker. But my grandma, they called the police. My grandma called the police. I was like, Granny, you killing me here. But you know what? She told me that when the police came, they asked him if she wanted to file charges, and she was like, no, he didn't steal anything, or he didn't break anything, and he didn't hurt me. And my grandma in that moment, she was to sympathize with him, because she was like, he's probably just hungry and cold, So, I mean, I don't know, man. I think I don't know. I think that's part of like where we are in the universe right now. I think we just need to have a reset. Because shit is getting crazy anyway, right? Like, we live in a time where you can't do right anyway, right? So like, yeah.
Good for your grandma, by the way. That's straight out of the Bible, man. That's Jesus saying, "He who steals my tunic steals trash." Let him.
Is that in there for real? That's not in the Bible.
That is Bible.
Is it really?
Biblical, yes, sir.
Oh, nice.
God bless your grandma.
God bless your grandma.
But yeah, man, I don't know, but again, I think it comes back to, I think we as humans try so hard to like manufacture everything, like try to keep everything in a
Tight knit.
Yeah, sometimes it's we'll see.
Gotta let it happen. The Austin way, that's for sure.
Yeah, and
So when you guys were saying, imagine a world without police.
yeah,
That's what you're talking about. Imagine a world where we don't feel the need to involve the police.
yeah, that's what I mean when I say it, right? Like I want to live in a world where we don't even have a job to where we expecting another person to go put their life on the line every day.
So let me ask you. You go home to your house this afternoon, and there's nothing left in there. Your electronics, TV, everything's gone. Mm-hmm. You're not going to call the police and make a report?
Well, me, I can't. I can't.
Why can't you?
Well, me personally, I can't. I mean, it's just not. It's not part of my.
It doesn't serve the coalition's mission.
No, it don't even have nothing to do with the coalition, right? Like,
Well, why can't you call?
it's just not my personal. It's just not my personal belief. Like, for what? Like, the stuff is gone. Like, how oftentimes do we actually find shit? Right? Like, it's just.
Right.
I worked burglaries for 5 years and recovered a ton of stuff. I worked aggravated robberies for years, caught a bunch of them. There's a great
The
chance.
thing is, if you investigate hard enough, it's almost always friends and
And I'm gonna
But
tell you,
Almost always
you
friends and
encourage
family.
somebody to file a complaint on the police, but you wouldn't defend your own property and your own stuff to try and help recover all your property.
I mean, it's just stuff.
it's just stuff.
But,
But I'll
but
say
it's
this.
only because of who you are. It's
Yeah.
because of the position you have taken publicly.
but
you don't feel like you should.
Right.
No, but no, it's my personal. It's like, but even with this, like when they were asking me about the Mike Ramos case, and this didn't make the news. I told them, they was like, "Do you think this cop should be in jail?" This is part of the news interview question. I was like, "Well, I don't believe in prison, right?" So like here, I can't say I don't believe that criminals, non-police criminals should not be in jail when I can't backdoor and say the cop should be in jail either. Do I want the cop to be held accountable? Absolutely.
So if he doesn't go to jail, how is he held accountable?
There are a lot of different ways to do that.
By the way, another conversation that could take us a week.
Yeah.
Have prisons ever been successful in protecting society or in rehabilitating our criminals? Or that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
Because we might actually be closer to agreeing than
Yeah.
we think.
Sounds like a good round two, honestly.
I'm down to come back, but I think some people would say yeah, but I think and you said it earlier. There are a lot of people making money off all this shit, right?
Both sides,
Like
yes,
there's no actual accountability for an officer that kills somebody to the victim's family if he just goes away, right? Like to me, let's say scenario, if you killed somebody in my family, right? I might want to hold you accountable by having you meet me at the gravesite of the family member like once a month, and let's talk about, and you just listen to me talk about who this person was to me and who you took away from me. Like that's probably going to affect you a little bit more than you just sitting in the cell. Like you sitting in the cell sucks for sure. It is a deterrent to not do bad shit again. However, there's no actual accountability there. To me, that is my personal belief and opinion. Same thing, like if I go home right now and somebody took all my sneakers, I would be fucking sad. But also, it's just stuff. Okay.
Well, make me a pinky promise.
Yeah.
You don't ever have to report your sneakers stolen, but if something ever happens really bad to your grandma, call the police so we can try and help.
Okay. Deal.
All right.
I think that's fair, right? Because like the violent stuff, sexual assaults, any kind of danger to a kid is something that I'm still dealing with in my own mind around my, ideology around police and prisons, because like those are like the line crosses for me. Like don't fuck with kids, don't fuck with old people, don't fuck with women, don't murder, right? Like those are the things that I think we have to find ways to.
That's biblical.
You don't believe in prison. I'm assuming you don't believe in the death penalty.
No, I don't, man. I think for me, and this is the part of, again, I lose a lot of friends in the movement space on a daily, because here we are talking about abolition in a new world, but you don't believe in redemption, right? Like, so you say throw the killer cops in jail, but in the same breath you say you don't believe in prisons, something's not adding up. Like, I have to believe that there's redemption even for the worst of us, right? Like, I have to believe that we all fall short, right? Like, I know that's biblical, like, and we're not perfect, but I have to believe that there's a chance that you can be a better version of yourself than who you presented to be in those scenarios or any given day, right? And I think that's one of the biggest hypocrisies about people on the left. Like, we say we believe in all these things. We believe in liberation. We believe in abolition. But, like, when it comes to certain people that don't agree with you, people that wear the uniform, like, you don't offer them that same grace. And it's just like, that's part of the problem. You know what I mean? Like, I have to believe that, there probably are a lot of racist people in our police departments or in institutions in general. But I have to believe, one, that, like, they were not born that way. And two, I have to believe that they are actually able to, have redemption. But I can't offer that redemption to them if I'm not talking to them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like.
Well, I will tell you, it's very difficult for cops, career cops, experienced cops, to believe that everybody is capable of redemption. There are the Jeffrey Dahmers, the John Wayne Gacy's of the world that we have to deal with, that we are just absolutely convinced they need to somehow be separated from society permanently, because there is no redeem, because we've just dealt with them so many times.
And even with that, I think when I say I don't believe in prisons, I don't believe in prisons the way we have them today. I think there's a prison in Norway. Like, it's basically like a camp. Like, they don't have cages and stuff. They have like little cottages and cabins. They're far away from society. But it's still it's a humane aspect to it. And I think, like, even if we have to have the people in those cases be very far away from the public, we can still treat them as a human. Like, these are just humans that somewhere up here things got tangled and crossed, and we need to put you in isolation, but we still have to, or we should treat you like a human.
Yeah.
And people sound crazy for that. Like, even when I did the New York Post thing, and I was like, if somebody came into my grandma's house and fucking blew her brains out, like, what do I benefit from that person being in jail? Like, if we could do some psychological.
If you're not mad about it, them doing it, I am.
I mean, but I would be mad, right? Because I'm human. But it's just like, okay, you're in jail, then what?
And our point would be, you don't need to gain anything by that person in jail. We need to protect the next grandma.
Yes.
From being the next. We need to protect the next Chaz from losing his grandma, because that individual was not held accountable. So for accountability, we are down with. It's a two-way street.
Yes, but I think going back way earlier, I think we mitigate and prevent a lot of these problems by taking the time to, like, do the big system issues, right? Like, why are people? Because I also believe that people are like this, like the person that went on the shooting rampage that we just talked about.
Yep.
Something happened there, right? And I think, going back to something we said earlier, I think we all have to take some accountability in that, right? Because, like, we as people have gotten so fucked up. Like, we don't speak to people when they come down the street no more. Like, we're just not nice to one another. We're not kind, right? And, like, we have to absorb some of that and understand our role into, like, how maybe we as a collective have contributed to people feeling siloed and othered and pushed to the brink to where they do stuff like that, because all that leads to the need for you all. That leads to the pseudo need for prisons and courts, which then loops back to, now we have problems with this because you see what I'm saying? So, like, it's just like, how do we, and I always say get back to the basics, but the more I say that, I'm realizing that maybe we never been there. But how do we get to the basic understanding that, quite literally, these young ladies behind the computer are my greatest resources, right? Like, we are literally all we have.
I think to make your point, I think that we as a society cannot comprehend that it's okay to disagree.
Yeah.
But 25 years ago, did you have road rage incidents? No.
No, not the way we do
rarely.
now. Yeah, not the way we do now. Yeah.
People are siloed. They're angry. People won't do this because if you don't agree with me, then by God, you must be the devil. You have road rage incidents, which when I was a kid, I'd never even heard that term in my entire life. You didn't see people going down the road trying to wreck each other out.
But it's publicized too, I think.
People can get on the internet and keyboard warrior and go to war with people. I mean, vicious, outrageous crap we can go fight on, and nobody's held responsible for it.
I blame it on the fact that our two major parties have basically preached to us that we should demonize the other side because they disagree with it, that there is no statesmanship left. There's no more, hey, let's sit down and work out compromise.
Yeah, but I think we got to own some of that too. I think we the people,
100%. Like we're the ones that vote them in there.
Yeah, and we just let them do whatever.
And we keep reelecting them too.
Yeah, it's just
see, we're agreeing.
Yeah, but again, even, man, and I've said this before, and people, again, my side hates it, where, I really don't even have a side, but they kind of just pull me. But even with the January 6th incident, right, I was just like, maybe we should take a moment to ask why these folks felt the need to do this. Right. Why do you actually feel like, one, this is your country and you're losing it, right? But we potentially lose having more people join this collective that wants a better country by just shunning these people away. But again, I'm crazy for saying all that type of stuff. You know what I mean?
So crazy when you got here. So.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know, man. And when it comes to policing, it's very difficult. It's not easy like some people say. But again, when I say imagine a world without police, it's like, how can we build a ecosystem environments where people don't even feel the need for police? Because the only way that society can work is if we take care of one another. The main reason we need police is because we don't know our fucking neighbors, right? We don't actually know who lives in our neighborhood. So we outsource our responsibility as good neighbors.
Well, they don't even raise their kids. They expect us to show up and fix the kid problem that they haven't fixed for the last 15 years.
Well,
so yeah,
I admire you, dude, for coming on, because it's easy to sit on social media, and I'm not saying you do this, but it's easier for people to sit on social media and take pot shots. It's easy to, go hold a megaphone and scream, but it takes some intestinal fortitude to walk in here. You weren't shy about it. When he called, he's like, hey, dude, Chaz says he'll come up here and cut it up. It takes some intestinal fortitude to come up here, and you've said a couple times, you're like, well, I'm going to piss off my base of people. Well, it's because you got common sense and you're trying to navigate through it, and we piss off some of our people sometimes. If you're going to try and figure out how to navigate and get better, you're trying to figure out how to do it better. Cops are trying to figure out how to do it better every day. That's when we have training and updates and policy shifts, and as things change, what can we do better? All the less lethal stuff, all the toys, is so we have other options to not either have to fight or shoot them. We've tried to adapt some other toys so we don't have to do that. But again, kudos to you for having the huevos to walk in here and sit down and say, I don't know what I'm walking into, but I'll sit down and have a conversation.
Absolutely. Really appreciate it. And by the way, if we would all just listen to Jesus's 2 commandments.
Which ones?
Love God, love each other. If we could accomplish those 2 things, you're right, we wouldn't need law enforcement.
Yep.
Amen.
It's just that simple.
It really is, man. We overcomplicate so much. Just I don't think people understand. If you just sit back and think about it for a second, we are supposed to be the highest life forms on this earth, which is, man, and we are little beings on a spinning rock full of water in a big galaxy. It's okay to just be like, man, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and I need you. I need your help, because it doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
Amen.
And we just make it so difficult. We should all be. I stopped drinking. I'm 2 years sober in January.
Congratulations.
But we should all just be talking about how terrible the Cowboys are, eating some good food, and drinking and eating and sharing stories and sharing culture. But all this other stuff is getting to a place to where, I think we're going to be forced to reset and really learn that we are all we got. And I think 2020 gave us a small example of that when the world shut down, literally. But we'll get there sooner or later.
Yep.
So again, it's nothing personal when I talk about
no
policing. It's not the people in the uniform. It's what that uniform has represented.
Well, I challenge you the next time maybe that you have the opportunity to thank a cop, do so. That's a challenge from Tyler Owens to
Grin
Chaz.
on his face.
What do you mean? Like just like
Well, you have to understand that the police, the men and women of any police department that's listening or watching this episode, they have a duty to go out there and they want to do it. They have a dedication, right? And so because of situations that you have been a part of, an organization that you founded, sometimes that rhetoric, just as it did with some of the defund shit, what you referenced as the wings, or maybe Clint did, sometimes that anti-law enforcement rhetoric gets back to these cops that just want to do their job.
Yeah.
And just want to
Yeah.
serve their community. So my challenge to you is that next time you see a law enforcement officer,
like publicly
do it.
Thank them for what they
I'll
do.
send
I'm
them
not
a
saying go give
DM.
him a hug.
I'll send them a private message.
Yeah. Okay.
They are cops are by and large just decent, honest,
100%.
hard-working people trying to do the right thing.
I believe that about
Just like
most.
every-
I
just
believe
like
that about most of them. Yeah.
We'll have a round 2 with Chaz Moore. How about that?
I'll be back.
And I'll leave you with this. Statistically, doctors have more malpractices than law enforcement officers have bad incidents.
I believe that.
But we don't defund doctors, and we're not telling people don't go see doctors, right?
What?
Yep.
See, you just started
In large,
Starting round two.
in large, no. Yeah, you're right.
That's part
You
two.
guys stay safe. God bless you. It's the happy
Appreciate you coming on,
holidays. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you for tuning in. Chaz, thank you so much for coming on. Greatly appreciate it. And we will hear from you in round 2.
Yeah, I'll be back. Looking
All right.
forward to it.
God bless you guys. God bless Texas. We're out.